Hello everybody, welcome back to the garage. Working on the old blue Willys today. Today we are, or did, shorten the throttle cable. So now the throttle pedal is attached to the throttle body and everything moves like it should. So it's quite a process. As mentioned before, I started with a Subaru. Is that better? Light? Woo. I started with a Subaru pedal. I will try and enter in what the model is here. I believe it was a Subaru Legacy from like 2000, 2004-ish range. It's a nice pedal because the pedal itself has both a mount to the firewall and a mount to the throttle cable, and then the pedal bracket mounts to the body, just with two bolts. And so this makes the throttle cable independent of like the firewall and all that stuff, which I think works a lot better and it's a lot easier to make adjustments. So that's what I started with for a pedal. Give you a little view here. So the pedal is largely unmodified. You can see it up in there. It fits nice. This is a modified floor though, so if you have a stock flat fender, it might not work as good, but this one has the floor kicked out more. But it's just a pretty simple looking pedal. Matches the Ranger brake and clutch pretty well. But so anyways, I had to shorten the throttle cable. So I started with another Subaru cable because I knew it would match the firewall end, where it mounts to the pedal. That was all factory. There's like a square hole clip-in system, and then there is a firewall grommet that comes with it for a 3/4 inch grommet in the firewall. I did have to slightly trim my my firewall reinforcement panel for the new brake pedal system, but I was able to cut that half moon out with a hole saw. Only almost died once or twice, and then did a 3/4 inch hole through the firewall for the grommet, just with a step bit. And then, so basically this cable was, I don't know if you can see this or not in one frame, but was that much too long. But it also had the right end here that was fairly easy to adapt to the now LS throttle body. The only thing I had to do here was drill out this hole slightly for the factory ferrule to 5/16. So once I did that, now it works just like it did normally. I did make this bracket, saw that in a past video. Mounts just with these adjustable nuts, so you have some adjustment this way here, and then the cable just runs around back into the firewall. So I tried to do a pretty generous loop to avoid the oil fill here. This upper radiator hose is kind of getting in the way too, but overall, pretty happy with that routing. Doesn't rub on the brake booster either. I did make a small bracket here that bolted to the AC, old AC mount, just with a zip tie. So yeah, the cable doesn't bounce as much now, and kind of keeps it in line. So the process for shortening that cable was a bit of a bear. It was something that I was dreading a little bit. I mean, the cables aren't super expensive, but they're still, I think I paid $30 for the cable. And if I, if I messed it up, I'm out $30. I don't double charge for that stuff if it's my mistake. So I took my time though. Basically I had to see if I can walk through the process, and I have some pictures that I can put over the top here that I, basically was able to remove the factory ends, basically the factory cable stop on that side. I did make that adjustable set screw style cable stop the other day on the lathe, and that fits everything that's factory on that pedal side. So there's a small rubber isolator, and then there's a plastic piece that actually clips into the actual throttle pedal, the part on the pedal that moves, and then that is connected all to the cable that runs through the middle. So I had to go through and shorten everything, and to do that, the order of operations was a little bit, you basically have to move the inner cable out of the way, but I don't want the inner cable to come out of the sheath all the way, because that end where you cut it usually frays just a little bit, and then getting it back in the sleeve sheath is kind of challenging. So I was very careful when I cut it apart to be able to move the cable, and I taped the cable in place so it didn't fall all the way out. And I was able to trim the ferrule, the crimp ferrule out of the way, save the piece off the end that went into the non-moving part of the throttle pedal. And that has a crimp on it that crimps the outside sheath of the cable. I remade that crimp ferrule out of some aluminum. It was basically just, I think anything that with a 5/16 ID, I had some 1/2 inch aluminum bar stock that worked pretty well, maybe a touch thick, but once I was able to make that, put it all back together, trim everything to the right length, I used my hydraulic battery crimper, and I actually use it for making ends on winch line too, but I was able to use that to recrimp the ferrule on the factory throttle pedal clip-in mount. And so that made everything pretty easy. It was a little bit, involved process, but in the end I ended up with a custom length cable. This cable is definitely long enough to work for almost any application I can think of. So once you learn how to shorten it, they're pretty easy. The stock cable would also work in a pinch. So if you wanted to carry a spare, or you needed a cable on the road or something, you could use that. You could use that Subaru cable long and just put a loop in it. But overall, once everything went back together, then I was able to use that adjustable cable stop that I made to kind of fine tune everything. And now the throttle pedal is connected to the throttle body. And when one moves, the other moves. And I don't know why, but that was just the best thing today. So it was just one of those things, like it just makes it feel much, much more like a vehicle when you have parts that are interconnected like they should be, I guess. So, the steering wheel steers, the pedal should make the motor go vroom, whatever you want to do. So once you get those, it makes the vehicle feel more whole. So on the other side of that, I had to take the vehicle apart a bit. So I had to remove the headers, if you remember right. So took the headers off this side and the other side. This side's easy. There's tons of room. You do have to kind of snake it over the dipstick tube. I did make sure and mark, there was some closeness on the header flanges for these plugs. And so I made sure to mark the header flange for that, and I will trim those slightly. And then on this side, actually, which was the much more difficult side, I was actually able to get this out of here without having to disassemble anything else. So there's a very specific tool set you have to use on the very back bolt here. If you can see that down in there. So on the very rear header bolt, you have to have the steering joint turned just the right way, and you can sneak a 1/4 inch extension and short socket over the top of that and hit that last header bolt. They're 10 millimeters. So it was kind of an interesting thing to do, but then actually was able to sneak it out of here. Oh, I did have to pull the coolant sensor. I don't know if that's an absolute requirement, but it sure made it easier. So I pulled the coolant sensor. I think that's the coolant sensor. Maybe it's a sensor, and it goes in right there. And so I had to pull that, but then I was able to basically snake the header out of this pretty tight area. So I was kind of impressed with that. And then so the plan for those is here they are, and I am going to, this one's easier because it sits up. So I am going to convert these from a 3-bolt system to just use a V-band. So I will go in and I will trim off this flange as close as I can, leaving as much length as I can, I think. But basically just go in here and if I can get this set up in the saw or just with a cutoff wheel or whatever, I'll go through and trim this this pressed on flange away, and then I can remove the 3-bolt flange, and then I will weld a cone to adapt from this, which is I think 2 1/4 down to 2-inch is what I'm going to do for the Y pipe, and then a 2-inch V-band on each side. And so that'll be pretty compact. There's actually not much in the way this direction with the way I need to go in the vehicle. So yeah, so that's going to be the next thing when my parts get here on these. Oh, I don't know if you can see. You can see some of the marks I made. If I can make the glare go away on the flanges where they were a little bit tighter than I wanted for the spark plug clearance. There's one there, one there. I think that one was okay, and I marked the other ones too. So I'll do a little trimming on the header flanges for just a touch more spark plug clearance. And then once I get that done, these are the I've been printing these for a little bit. So these are exhaust mock-up blocks. So each segment is 15 degrees. There are some very fancy ones out there, but I just 3D print them. And so I'll make a bunch of these, and then I need to find some 2-inch cardboard tubing, and then I will use this and the cardboard tubing and probably a couple other little 3D printed mock-up pieces, like for the not the header part of the V-band, but the opposite part of the V-band. I'll make a little adapter that goes from this to straight or this to V-band, and then I will basically do a full-scale mock-up under the vehicle of the exhaust system, and that will be, whoa, bright camera. That will tell me how many, roughly how many bends I need, how much straight I need. I will bolt the Y pipe merge to something, probably the PTO port on the transmission or something for a reference point, and then I'll connect from the headers to that till that Y merge, and then duplicate everything in metal. So hopefully that doesn't take forever, but that's definitely a little bit of work for sure. But yeah, that'll be the next thing to connect on the old blue Willys, and then plenty to do still. Lots of welding on the gas tank to do, but I'm going to try and do that in segments or as it fits in the schedule a little bit better. But still working on that, still doing the test cube welding, and yeah, so exhaust is kind of the next major project. And then I'll get some shocks ordered up for this and build out the rear shock mounts and the lower mounts on the axle and stuff. The front are nearly done. They are these towers right here and here. So pretty simple. I just need to add shock tabs on the axle. But so I'll get some nice shocks ordered up, and and that'll be that. But thanks for following along. If you have any questions, drop a comment below, and there's a bell, and subscribe if you want to follow along over here. Thanks for watching. Bye.